Lots of crazy free agency news to get into, not only in the NHL, but for the Tampa Bay Lightning, which is what we're going to focus on today. Let's get right into it. Starting off with the first signing of the day, Brian Elliott was signed as the free agent goaltender for the Lightning after they decided not to re sign Curtis McElhinney. What are the Lightning getting in Brian Elliott? Well, this past season, in 30 games, which he started 26 of them. He had a record of 15, 9, and 2 with a save percentage of 889 and a goals against average of 3.06. Not the most optimal in the world in terms of the backup goalies that were on the market, but he did have better stats this year than Curtis McElhinney. And even though the record might not indicate it, the Philadelphia Flyers defense is not that good, especially if he wanted to return. It has made significant changes, is not as good as it was the previous year, and the previous year it was not very good. Now he's going to be behind a Lightning defensive core that is headed by Victor Hedman, Ryan McDonough, Eric Chernak, and Mikhail Sergachev, among others. So expect those numbers to increase. All he has to do is win a couple games, help Vasilevsky rest, and the rest should be smooth sailing. On to an old friend. Not to say that I have called this, but in my free agency article about who the Lightning should target, I said Zach Bogosian. And Zach Bogosian has indeed re signed with the Tampa Bay Lightning for 3 years at an average annual value of $850,000 a year. It's a weird contract. You don't normally see multi-year deals or 3-year deals in this case at a average annual value of less than $1 million. We saw it last year with Joey Anderson of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and now we see it with Zach Bogosian. Bogosian even admitted that he had better offers on the table in terms of money, but wanted to go to a place that he was familiar with and that he liked. Now, seeing as Zach Bogosian has only played for 3 teams, one of which was in Canada, and the other was the Buffalo Sabres, I can see why he chose the Lightning. Now, in this past season, he only had 4 assists in 45 games, but if you ask any Maple Leaf fan out there, he was a solid bottom 4 defender. Sometimes he played on the second pair, sometimes he played on the third pair. That's exactly what the Lightning are looking for. Whether it is as the 6th or 7th defenseman, the Tampa Bay Lightning should be just fine with Zach Bogosian filling in for a couple of games, potentially being that 6th defenseman if they don't like what they see out of Cal Foot. And if they don't like it, they can always bury the contract. I think that's often forgotten with these sorts of contracts, is that even though it is 3 years long, they can bury it in the minors because it is under the threshold of what is allowed to be buried in the minors. Then the Lightning decided to put a lot on the table in terms of who they were signing, specifically the fact that they sent out a press release detailing 5 different players at one time. These players are forward Gabriel Dumont, forward Charles Hudon, defenseman Darren Radish, defenseman Andre Schuster, and goaltender Maxim Lagacé. So going into what we know, let's start off with what we know. We know Gabriel Dumont because he played 30 games with the Lightning in previous seasons. A very, very solid depth player. He's really good with the crunch when he had to play with them. He came up, he played some solid third and fourth line minutes for the Lightning. It's a two-way contract, and unless there are a ton of injuries, you should not expect to see him on the main roster unless he really impresses in camp, which would be a welcome surprise. Andre Schuster is another name you might know, and a lot more of a frustrating name if you are a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, as he was a really, really long tenured defenseman for the Lightning before being traded, or actually for being released by the Lightning and signed by the Ducks. He has spent some time in the European leagues, and he is finally back in the NHL. He's going to be the number one or number two right-handed defenseman in Syracuse, most likely, after playing with the Coolum Red Star in the KHL. He's only 30 years old. His career is not over by any means, but he did not impress in his first stint with Tampa Bay Lightning. I am not afraid to say that he was not my favorite player, but if he is someone that has to come up for 1 to 5 games in a season and take over for an injured Jan Ruda or an injured Zach Bogosian, he can fill that role very admirably. I have no doubts that he has gotten better since he left the Lightning and went to the KHL. He's also 6'7", which is something that Tampa Bay loves. They love getting their tall, muscular defensemen in order to, body people off the puck. As far as foot speed, you're not going to like what you see out of Andre Schuster, but he is a draft nonetheless. Now, let's get into what we don't know, or what we sort of know. If you're paying attention to the NHL, not necessarily the Lightning in particular, but the NHL as a whole, you're going to like what you see on these next three signees. Darren Radish, who's 25 years old, is the brother of Taylor Radish, who is a right winger in the Tampa Bay Lightning organization, who might make the jump to the main roster this year. Radish was an assistant captain on the Hartford Wolfpack last year in the AHL, which was the minor league affiliate of the New York Rangers. He's played in some NHL games, but he has mostly been in the AHL, and he set his career highs in 2019, 2020 in both assist and point. Not as big as Andre Schuster, but about as mean as Andre Schuster. And as far as what he's going to be, more right-handed defensive depth. That's ultimately what this is. And if he has to play, there are going to be some questions as to what the roster might look like at that point, but he's there for the ride. Maxim Lagacé, I'm going to go to the goaltender before I get to Charles Hudon. Maxim Lagacé was the fourth goalie for Vegas back when Vegas had their inaugural season. All their goalies kept on getting injured, and Lagacé played in, I believe it was 14 or 15 games for Vegas. Did not throw up great numbers, but he has been a lot better in the minor leagues, and that's exactly what he's going to do. JBB has already said during his press conference that he will be the mentor to Hugo Onifat in Syracuse and try to help him out and maybe take the starting reins if things don't go well for Onifat in his first season in North America. And then Charles Hudon. Charles Hudon is only 27 years old, but has been in the Montreal Canadiens organization for a long time. Back in 2017, 2018, he had 30 points to his name, and things started to fall off from there. He's a very, very responsible two-way player, but he's more defensive than offensive. I will say he is very good defensively, and then his offensive game leaves a lot to be desired. You might see him on the main roster. It's not likely, but if they want a defensive presence on the bottom six, which we'll get to how they address that today already, then he is your guy. Going from the big five, as I'll call them, to someone who I don't think a lot of Lightning fans expected to sign, and that was Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. Now, Bellemare has been with Colorado Avalanche for the last 2 seasons after being with the Vegas Golden Knights and Philadelphia Flyers, and he is basically your stereotypical fourth line center. Fantastic defensively, pretty good on the penalty kill, doesn't really generate a ton of offense. I think the Lightning fans got spoiled last year with having Ross Colton and Tyler Johnson as their fourth line centers. Some people that they know can create some offense. With Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, who I forgot to mention the contract, signed a 2-year, $1 million contract, he is not that guy, but he is someone that reverts back to a style they've seen before. think Brian Boyle, except smaller because Brian Boyle was a giant. And finally, in the final signing of the day, the Lightning signed Remy Ellie, a forward from the Nashville Predators, to a 1 year, two-way contract. Ellie, once again, will provide organizational depth. And at the end of the day, which is something I seem to say on a lot of these videos, I don't expect him to get the call. If he does, we have to seriously consider where the organization is right now in terms of health, but he should provide some great depth to Syracuse. What do you think of the signings? Make sure to let us know in the comment down below. Also, make sure to follow us on this channel and give us a like, share, and subscription, as well as our Twitter account at @BoltReport_TV for all your news notes and game recaps. We've got a ton of videos coming out today because free agency was very busy, but that is going to be the free agency roundup. Thank you guys so much for watching. And remember, Tampa Bay Lightning are back to back Stanley Cup champions.